Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this presentation of, I have to wear my glasses, otherwise I'm not able to read exactly, and I don't remember by heart. UK Textile Industries, Opportunities and Challenges for the Future. My name is Giulia Marcon, and I am in charge of international promotion at the department of the regional government of Piemonte, which is the region where Biella is seated. We prepared and we worked together to prepare this study, which will be introduced later on. And we are here to welcome, it was especially done to welcome the UK companies representatives who are today with us. I don't think that all are here today because some of them are already here around for meetings, but this was specially done to facilitate these meetings and introduce to Italian and not only Italian companies what is the UK market and where the UK market is going these days. This study was, as I was saying, it was especially prepared for this occasion. It was done some months ago, then it was updated expressly for this meeting. And as I was saying, some representatives of UK companies are here today. They are part of a larger delegation, which includes also people coming from other European countries, such as Spain, for example. And they are all here today to visit the fair, to have meetings, to have business meetings, and tomorrow to visit some companies going directly to the fabric and where the fabric is done. So they will go to the laboratories, to the factories, to see how some companies which are active in and based in the Biella area do their daily work. So I was here just to welcome you, everybody, and let me thank the organization of Filo and especially Mr. Monfermoso, who is sitting here with us, and also Mrs. Bonino, who is here around, but I'm sure that many among you know her very well. She is a pillar of the fair, so this was only to welcome you, but I leave the floor to, I have also, again, I'm sorry, I always remember people, but I never remember names. So Matteo Costariol will introduce you to the presentation of the study. And I remember you that this is a dialogue. So feel free to ask questions and to discuss with Matteo about what he is going to introduce you. Thanks you for coming and thanks you for attending this event.
Bene, buongiorno and welcome. Well, I heard some saying that Great Britain is actually in the middle of the perfect storm, and that Brexit couldn't be planned with worse timing. But despite the enormous difficulties, the British economy has proven to be resilient enough. In fact, while services value is slightly decreased recently, 2022 data, production have instead increased. And what is important, following what is a very recent PwC's report, is that recipes do include, among other measures, the acceleration of and boosting of trade agreements with EU and US, which are United Kingdom best trade partners. Well, then, of course, there are other measures that will be taken, and that include the boosting of the digital sector, rather than, of course, sustainability. The, the UK has a presence in all step of the value chain for textile-based products, although he has a stronger activity in certain parts of the value chain. The UK has played an important role in global textile industry, where, as many of you knows, as most of key technologies are originated in the United Kingdom during the Industrial Revolution. But today, the realignment of supply chains are creating new opportunities for suppliers at all levels. And while Brexit, pandemic lockdowns, Russian sanctions, and sustainability preferences have created interruption in textile industries, those can be exploited to favor new relationship and with new high-quality suppliers. And this is probably why we are all here today. And here I briefly mention what is actually our table of content. In fact, like as said, the UK, as a large and well-connected market in Europe, has many opportunities at all levels of the value chain. And this report will explore some of these opportunities. So, as said, UK has a very long tradition in the textile industry. So, and most of present technology is the result of United Kingdom developments during the Industrial Revolution. All the value chain is present, even if, as we will see, some chain rings of the chain are more developed than others. Recent changes had led to new opportunities, and for sustainability especially, and more could come if well exploited right after like the present turmoil that we all are aware of and that we all know. No, go back. Thanks. So here you've got the mention like what are the main processes that you probably like do all know pretty well. And where in I said like there is a very high tradition and for quality for the production of quality fibers in the United Kingdom. There's a deep history of it, but when we're talking about yarns, instead, of course, there are companies there scoring, combing, spinning, but it has to be said that this is primarily done in low-cost labor countries, and with a very small number of UK companies that are still involved in wool yarn production. For textile instead, like, of course, talking about weaving and knitting the yarn into fabrics, UK companies have small presence, and but still we do know that most of it is actually being imported from abroad, and Asian countries especially. Where are the volumes? Volumes are especially, of course, in the garments and accessories production, and so cutting and sewing fabrics into clothing, housewares, bags, and other goods. So, and many companies in the UK do operate in this specific process of the value chain, and quite often concentrating more on high quality and luxury products for domestic and international sales. So another well-developed phase is the distribution one. The packaging, so packaging the finished good, transporting them to retail, is pretty much developed. Actually, it's probably like we all have to learn from the UK in distribution organization, as this is actually led by big retail chain that are pretty much present and developing in the country. Okay. And, then we wanted to share with you a few numbers. Well, looking at the chart here, we do know that in 2021, the British textile and fashion industries did export some 9.1 billion of some 9 billion, and that specific data went up about 28% since 2013. So the industry is actually growing, and which is very, very interesting for us. Compared to the Italian industry, of course, like we got like different values, like out of, if the UK does export like 9.1 billion, the Italy in the meantime is actually exporting 53 billion of export of textile and fashion products. But still, like as we notice, and it is growing. Talking about consumers, then we know that the average spending of a consumer in 1 year is £780, which is a fair value, and even if what they consume comes from 90% from abroad. Okay, and that actually explains the following data, which is the trade deficit that went up to 15.4 billion. So, which is the difference between export and import. Okay. So, and even here there are several government initiatives in order to somehow offset and balance that data. Okay. So again, I mean, this is what I was saying before. Like looking at the chart, I mean, it's quite clear where volumes are. Of course, like as we are all here, there are businesses and companies operating in every single step of the value chain, but the production of garments and accessories does take the main share of it, and even there within the chart is even clear to notice how export is actually outpacing import. Import is actually outpacing export in UK, creating a large deficit. Okay. Right. Then I'd like to go through pretty quickly to what are the main processes of the value chain. Talking about fibers, talking about wool, cotton, and synthetics product. And I say there is a very deep tradition in the production of fibers in the UK, which accounts at about like 10% of the export. And while talking about the import instead, most of it do come from the EU, and their value actually recently increased. Cotton instead, looking at the graph there, there has been quite a sharp decrease at the beginning of the century, but then like it grew stable, it grew up to stabilize, and this is how it's actually performing right now. But synthetics, this is where the business is actually growing quite a lot, as you all know. And at the moment, it does account for 41% of their export. and over 60% of the imports, and which makes it in a very, very strong position. Talking about yarns instead in the UK, we're talking about mostly wool, a little bit less, much less cotton, and there are small volumes, and normally concentrated in niche market. There are like a couple of examples here, the West Yorkshire Spinner and New Landmark Spinning companies. They are both very high quality producers of hand knitting British wool. And this is just the example they wanted to share. And talking about instead textile, even here the production have recently decreased due to high labor costs, which, as you all know, is impacting the whole sector. And so companies are focusing on premium and customized fabric, or operating within niche markets. A good example of it is the Array Smart, which uses digital printing to customize their offer. And then, that among all, there are some companies that do operate and make a distinctive mark of the fact of having a UK production. And even if, as we see in our slide, that most of textile do come from abroad, so Belgium, China, Italy, of course, and Turkey. And but despite British reputation for quality textile, such as leather as well, leather tanneries are actually few, and their number is slowly decreasing. So, Carmen Accessories. This, again, is where volumes are. And we're talking about large varieties of products, and most belong to, large UK brand retailers. Anyway, 90% of it, they do come from abroad, especially from Asia. If we look at the chart, like most of it do come from China and Bangladesh, coming from Turkey, coming from Italy and India. It's quite interesting that we actually are able to overcome at the moment India, actually. I don't know how for how long. Anyway, contract companies are developing in the UK. This is a good business that is actually very interesting. So we're talking about companies such as SJ Garment Manufacturer. They are focusing on services, so designing, sampling, managing production and distribution, including the e-commerce. Then we go the distribution phase. We're talking about a very well developed sector and very, very strong. That deals with the import, export, and local distribution, and managed to actually bring volumes of production of distribution to the pre-pandemic levels, and again managing what has been an important factor, which is the rise of the online sales, which today reach 30%. And in fact, there are a lot of players that have been investing this period in owning their own storages and their own distribution channel in order to have full control. Some examples of these are the ASOS, Next, and Boohoo. Then we're having a quick look at import and export. If you want to flick a little bit between the two slides, Giuseppe. Yeah, go back, okay. And what is actually interesting here, that of course, I mean, we do know what are the codes that actually make volumes. I mean, we're talking about like non-knit women's suits, jackets, dresses, knit sweaters and cardigans, etc. And non-knit and knit t-shirt, etc. And these makes we will find them on top of the rank, both for the import and for the export. What is actually interesting for the UK specifics is that the very first code of importing of import is called other closed article, which we know is mainly like involved with sanitary products. Okay. British wool. Okay. And talking about what characterize, I mean, some very specific data about the industry is we have to talk about British wool. British wool is promoted by the British Wool Association, that is actually very active in promoting the industry, even if little fiber actually do stay in the UK, and because we have to know that of all the wool fiber production in the UK, like about 60% goes to China. And but still, I mean, there are a couple of examples that we wanted to share with you, and one is called Churchby, and which is bag producers, which do choose to buy from a certain flock and keep the whole supply chain within the UK. And another one is called Yagle, and basically we're talking about a recently launched brand that takes its name from this local breed whose wool has been worn for centuries because it is so effective in regulating temperature. So Yaglet again emphasize the sustainability of its products, as they are durable and come from natural fibers. And it is an example of local sustainable products that are actually gaining popularity in the market. And talking about instead what are the strong sectors, we have to talk about technical textile. And technical textile alone is actually, I mean, the sector is actually worth over 2 billion. The textile innovation in the UK is ranked third worldwide and is number one in Europe in terms of patents generation. And companies in this sector are mainly located in Greater Manchester, Lancashire, Yorkshire, Leicestershire, and Nottinghamshire. And among those, Textex is one example, producing technical wipes, filtration textile, footwears, and medical textile. Among technical products, the smart textile actually gaining momentum, and got many different examples here, and we wanted to share with you. And from intelligent moleculars to built-in switches, conductive polymeric yarn, and absorbing energy textile, and all these are actually gathering so much interest from the market, and ranging from the sport sector to the medical one, and up to the smart fabrics that are also being designed to protect against terrorist bomb, as they actually do absorb energy. So very interesting niche. And then Then we changed completely subject, and so we won't talk about food or anything. We're still within the textile world, but we're talking about trends. We're talking about tastes, and how these are actually changing. Before the pandemic, in fact, there was a gradual shift away from formal suits to smart and casual clothes. This is why today I'm not wearing a tie. I went, I went, I came here with 3 different ties in my luggage, and then I saw this morning. So no, I leave it there. I leave it there because I've got that slide that I have to discuss. But anyway, beside that, yes, we have to take into account that our work from home environment started during the pandemic. Actually, did accelerated this trend, and many post-pandemic offices have reopened with more relaxed dress code. And and uh, and um, and this actually leads us to future trends. Among all, sustainability that we already mentioned in the 2 cases before, where we have to take note that products with low carbon footprints are becoming more popular, especially among young people. And this is because fashion is actually considered the second most polluting industry. And regulatory pressure is already over it, and that has to be taken into account in order to be consistent with Paris Agreement goals. There is, of course, we need to see this as an opportunity. I mean, got no chance anyway. So we need to see that as an opportunity. So working on the durability of clothes will become important as consumers look to reduce their waste generated from the fashion industry. And it's also true that the most likely impact of an increase in preferences for products from innovative natural fibers instead of weak synthetics, particularly from young consumer, is gaining momentum again. So then there is Brexit. Well, Brexit is something that actually has been changing things quite a bit, but that is something that will be overcome pretty soon. And I mean, this is my personal opinion. And but it's true that at least 59% of fashion brands have been impacted by Brexit. That 25% of brands that have been surveyed consider relocating as well, at least part of their business and processes, and it's also true that 91% of them want a visa that allows creative access to EU country cheaply and quickly, and that was part of the PwC report that I mentioned right at the beginning of the presentation. They actually give among the recipes that of accelerating on trade agreements and making like access to new market as quick as possible. Still keeping on the future trends and actually present trends. Here are some of the best apps and websites for selling in the UK. I mean, you probably know like most of it. Like most of them are international, like Vinted, eBay, etc. But Bestial Collection, here we again. I mean, you probably do know them, and but again, this is part of what is actually going on in the market, and because up to today, the Great Britain is actually been known for fast fashion in recent times, at least, and it was what actually has been distinguishing the UK high streets. And but fast fashion has been dominant in the UK, but there are signs, and is still quite dominant. But there are signs that that actually is slowing down, especially because the tastes and sensibilities of consumers are changing, especially among young people. As we've seen, they are particularly interested in products with low environment footprints. Fact, but besides, there are some early signs that indicate that strong fast fashion brands are improving sustainability with minimal sacrifice to flexibility. So it means that this can be done. And among, let's say that the coronavirus pandemic forced to a further shift toward the e-commerce. And there are indications that at least 36% of that shift is actually permanent, which is quite a share. And that meaning consumers are now more comfortable shopping online. And there are many development underway. There are, of course, a few issues that will have to be solved. I mean, we got a couple of here, like I mentioned, like many returns, generic consumer experience. But, I mean, that is the trend that we cannot stop. And, okay. Right. See. And then an issue that was actually important for us is to try to understand what is the perception of British players. Then we'll do a survey over here somehow, and of Italian products, and which is commonly positive. And as we see, like we are among the top players ranking in the survey that's been taken in 2017. So European Union is actually ranking first, then Italy, Germany, Sweden, and right after United Kingdom. So the overseas countries as United States and Japan. Going back again to the sustainability issue and a few practical examples of how things are actually changing and what even small to medium-sized companies are actually working on it. And one of the examples are the Wall Mill Abramoon, which is working toward zero waste, investing more energy efficient machinery and green energy, as well as reducing single-use plastic throughout the mill. Then we got Holland Sherry, that has developed a new fabric that features wool sourced from a unique flock of merino sheep bred and raised in Scotland. And then Lindon, there's introduced a new tweets that includes recycled and bio yarn. So, or again, even Locaron, has a new tweet that is woven using an innovative 100% recycled yarn. So these are all trends that are already taken into account and they are impacting the industry. They're impacting the industry exactly as, unfortunately, geopolitical aspects are impacting the industry and all industries right now. Among all the Russia and Ukraine conflict, they created a shock to the supply chain. As trade with Russia is highly restricted, and Ukraine faces very difficult obstacles to produce and export goods. And the higher, for example, the higher cost, to be practical, the higher cost of fertilizer will increase the price of some organic fibers, particularly cotton. Actually, they already have increased it. And even if Ukraine is actually exporting only 800 million, just over 800 millions of US dollar of garments and textile. There was a 2020 data. And the sharp reduction in this area is large enough to impact on the global supply chain. And again, sanctions. The sanction environment is actually dynamic, so we need to monitor it. And there's nothing that we can say, but that we can do, but just keep monitoring and see what are the effects and how long, because we won't know how long it will last. Again, unfortunately, that is something that it's not just restricted to the European area, but there are some Asian issues as well. So let's say that we're taking like from talking about agreements where right after Brexit, the UK is slowly creating a new relationship, often bilateral agreements, and this is a path that will be developed again, and but we have to take into account that, for example, other issues such as for the first time in 30 years, the EU placed sanctions on China related to the forced labor in Xinjiang. This has already caused supply chains to adjust to avoid goods that have any connection with the Xinjiang, and these sanctions are likely to continue. So again, we want to be positive, so we want to see this as an opportunity, and an opportunity for us to replace Asian suppliers with UK buyers or buyers from other countries. And finally, talking about opportunities, there are lots of them that we could exploit nowadays, and I wanted to share one especially because there's at present extensive search by UK universities for new industrial partners, and that is really to overcome that deficit of trade that we actually seen before, if you remember. And so many Italian companies could take advantage of this to forge new relationships on the market. And the new project focuses on making the British fashion industry more competitive. So reducing product development cycles and waste, moving from linear to circular economy, implementation of new digital technologies in the design process. So, and we did notice, and we do know that there are many companies here in Piemonte that find innovation, that have innovation in their DNA, and they could actually aspire to a large market share. So that was it. Thank you very much for listening. And in case if you want any question, or or if you want to discuss or raise, actually even better, if you have an issue that you want to raise and to discuss, then we can do it right now. Okay. Thank you.